Don't know what happened to the previous program. I'm assuming it will still be good. Okay, so here's the template I'm going to use for my basic page template. I'm going to copy that, Control-C, and I'm going to use my favorite editor, Notepad++. I'm going to start a new file in Notepad++ and zoom in a bit here and paste. You can actually choose your font in Notepad++. I think that's a decently readable font. Okay, I'm going to put, for my default page here, I'm going to put in my name, my email, and my web page. You can have your own website, Google website. I strongly suggest, if you're junior or senior, establish a website. This page, I'll just say description here, because this is my template. I'm going to put my copyright in there and organization. You can make up an organization if you like. Remember, this is the comment delimiter in HTML. And you can't use comments too much. And let's see here. Since I don't have any added features yet, I'm just going to put in my original, created on this day. Actually, I like, well, we'll go with the standard naming convention, 01/19/2023. Or original. You could put the copyright at the top. You could put more decorating things around there. Sometimes I've seen people do a nice little border around their signature. Some people like to do this in code as well, just to make it a little neater looking. If you like the MLA style, you can do MLA style. All this in comments, nice and readable. And you don't have to go wild with white space, but a little white space there does make it easier on the eyes. And I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this as, might as well put it in my cs325 folder that I don't have yet on that folder. cs325, go to my web, and I'll make a spring, 2023 spring, and I'll call it Manning template.html. Okay, now because it's saved as HTML, my wonderful Notepad++ does a little bit of decorating of my text. If you're using VS Code eventually, it'll do the same kind of thing. It does some autocompletes for you too. That can be helpful, can get annoying as well. But we want to be sure you could do it, all this in a text editor. And that is my template. I'm going to also now do a save as. And I'm going to call this, let's call it Manning HTML practice.html. And now let's put I think I should put a title here. Probably should put this here, title. Actually, I'm going to put file name at the top. File, Manning HTML practice. Some people like that style of always naming what file this was meant to be. This is just practicing all the tags. Okay, we've got the title nice. Now let's start changing the title. Remember this title, this controls, I'm going to put a little comment here. Tab, display, text. Whatever you put here will be what's displayed on the text. So I'm going to call this HTML practice. Notice when I view this in my browser, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to put this on the right side. And I'm going to bring my browser on the left side. I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to do Control-O, and I'm going to go open that file that I just created. And this, I'm not putting it on the documents folder. I'm going to put in my special hard drive over there to save all my stuff. And here is my HTML practice. Now I'll see what the web page should look like. Notice I don't have any content in the body, but I do show HTML practice in the tab. Now let's put some content here, and let's practice some tags. The very first tags that you'll probably learn. Let's see what W3 Schools shows. I have a feeling W3 Schools. I have a feeling their HTML tutorial starts with the H tags. Let's see. They do a few exercises. Oh, they actually use the P tag first. Okay, we'll do the P tag, and then we'll start doing the other tags. P is pretty boring. It basically just says this is a paragraph, and then I'll just say this is a paragraph. Using the, oh man, I want to display, and I end my P tag there. What's the problem with this? If I actually want to display the less than, here, I'll zoom in on that. If I actually want to display the less than and greater than symbol, I can't use the less than symbol. Or if I browse, if I come over here and do a refresh, oh, I have to save it first, Control-S, save. Come over here, do a refresh. This is a paragraph using the, oh, look, I can't display the less than greater than. What do? This is a special character. In order to actually display the less than character, I have to do this. Because my browser wants to parse that as a tag, I have to do the ampersand LT, meaning, hey browser, actually display the less than symbol here. Now let's see what happens if I refresh. It actually knows, oh, you're not starting a tag called P, you want to actually display the less than there. Ampersand LT standing for the less than symbol. Notice because the browser didn't know that I was ending anything because it didn't see the less than, I don't actually have to do the GT for greater than. If it doesn't know it started a tag, it'll display it and not make me have to do ampersand GT. But if you want to be consistent, you could put a ampersand GT here, and there's a whole list of special characters that you can find out in the reference pages for W3 Schools. And here's a great way to do it. Let's just do LT, GT, other HTML. And let's see, oh, look at that. W3 Schools has an explanation of special entities. And they have other things there. Look at that, a whole list of the special characters that, if it's not displaying properly, you can actually give it an entity name instead of trying to write it. Let's see what happens if I try to do an ampersand here, and I didn't do the and AMP. Come back here and refresh. Look at that. It will display it, even though properly I should do the ampersand AMP instead. So usually, well, sometimes you can get by with this and it will display as you expect. Other browsers may not be so happy. They may see, wait a minute, you can't do this. You have to do ampersand GT. It might put a ugly black box there instead. And that's where, oh, look at that. I have the option of doing either the word NBSP or LT, or the actual ASCII. I believe that's the actual ASCII code for the pounds, for the less than key. They explain that other entity. Oh, something I hadn't noticed. At W3 Schools, it says your browsers may not support all the entity names. Well, if I look at Schoology, the assignment here for you that we're looking at for this first web page. Let me check. Let's see, I have an assignment. Oh, I haven't given you that assignment yet. Oh, I have to format that. I'll check the syllabus here. The first assignment that I want to do is your first web page. That's in our syllabus. I guess I have to make a link for that. In our scheduled, our first assignment is your first web page. Your first web page. What I'd like to do next week is basically practice using all the tags available to us, and one by one just go through our tags and practice using them. So here's the paragraph tag. Now let's use all the H tags. H, let's do, how far can we go? Is it H1 to H6? What happens with H7? What happens with H0? Let's try it and see what happens. I'm going to try H0 to H10. Because I'm just curious what it'll do if I try H0. Will it give me an error, or will it just ignore that? And I want to display what's there, so let's just do H0. I'll just do the letters there. I'm not going to worry about getting the greater than lessons in there. And one by one, I'm going to copy paste that and just change the number. And just for fun, let's change the number there. And I think some editors will let you change the numbers in very... Is it going to get bigger or smaller as I go up in the number? What do you think? What makes sense to you?
Bigger.
Should it get bigger as the number goes higher? Let's find out. Oops. What do you predict is going to happen when I do an H7? I'm thinking it's just going to display it as just normal size, whatever normal is, the default size. I think it'll show up. I can save it, come to my browser, and here's the moment of truth. Let's do a refresh, see what I get. H1 is the largest. It gets smaller as I go down. Oh, and no, notice something here. H1 also automatically gives me a new line after I end the H1.
All the headings do except 7 and 8.
Yeah, because H7 and H are actually illegal. It doesn't give me an error. It just says, oh, I don't know what to do with that, but I'll display the text and not give me an error, and it won't give me an error. Just for fun, I'm going to select all, Control A, copy, and I'm going to go over to the HTML validator. And I know I gave you a link to that, but I'm just going to search for HTML validator. There is an online validator for free out there. Just search for HTML. There's a markup validation service, and I can go to validate by direct input and paste my small web page. It's small enough to copy paste. Do you think it will validate, or will it complain about those unknown tags? Let's find out. Oh, it does give you a little complaint about that unknown tag, which I'm glad it did. And it gives me a complaint about the H8 and H7. Another way to find out whether there's errors on your page without going to the validator is to see, does your browser actually have a warning about that or something? This is a great way to debug your web pages. You can go up to your little extra features in your browser and go down to More Tools and go down to Developer Tools, or Control-Shift-I. Developer Tools in your browser. Let's see what shows up then. It shows your code that it sees. You can choose console here in the developer. I thought there'd be a console show up. And sometimes you'll see whether your browser actually complains about something on that page. I don't see complaints on the page. Oh, here you go, console. Oh yeah, the console isn't showing any complaints about your page. And if you don't like seeing it vertically side by side, I like seeing it horizontal. I can go to this little tool here. Oh, where is that tool? Go back. I can, under here. There we go. I can make my docking of my developer tools down at the bottom. So at the console, if you actually have some significant problems on your web page, your browser can actually tell you, hey, there's problems here, without you actually visiting and testing it at the HTML validation page. But this validation page is another great way to check. Is it following the rules of HTML? We'll be using that regularly, but let's see if we can cause an error in the console. Let's go back to this code here, and let's say I skip the less than on that guy. Let's see if that causes a problem. I'm going to save and refresh here. Oh, it doesn't complain. It says, oh, I think I can get by with that. I don't know. Let's see if it browses. Oh, look at that. It didn't display correctly, but it didn't complain about a missing tag. Let's put something else there. Let's try changing that to end in H5 instead of an H6 and see if it complains about that. Save, refresh. Oh, no complaints in the console. And look at that, they actually seem to display correctly, even though I know this is an error. And I'm pretty sure my validator will give me an error. But that was just a little bit playing around here. Let's make a good HTML and go on with other tags. If you want to leave the bad ones in there just for fun, I'm going to delete them. But just to notice here, notice what an H0 does. Not only does it give you different size text, after this H1, remember, I'm going to put a little comment here, this also causes a new line. Remind yourself that whenever you end an H1 section, it will force a new line. Sometimes you don't want a new line, you just want large text. Maybe there's a way to do H1 without, and then H2 following.
Onto all of them adding a new line?
Yeah, they're all adding a new line. So every H tag, the ending tag will also introduce a new line. And notice the P does that as well. The ending of a paragraph automatically forces a new line.
Is there a way to stop that from happening?
There may be a way. That might be a little exploration to do. Suppose you have some text. You say you have text, let's make it H4 size. This is a line. You know, what if I want it to look like this? This is a line, and this is a second line, and end my H4. Maybe I want multiple lines in between there, like that. What is that going to look like? Let's see. Save that, refresh. Oh, it did make them new lines. It did make them H4 size, but it didn't bring in a new line. What do I do? There is a way to force a new line. It's a very common thing to see. BR for give me a break. And because this one is just a single tag, I don't have to do a BR and then a less than /BR. I can do this. This is sometimes you'll see in a I'll call it a single type of tag. I don't need an ending. There's nothing in between the start and end. It just gives me a new line. BR is what we call that, break. And if I refresh, that forces that second line. But notice it only forces one new line. It doesn't give me this. The slash just says, actually, I don't think the slash is required.
Yeah, I'm using without the slash.
Without the slash, it'll still work. I like putting the slash. It just reminds me that I'm not starting a new tag. This is a tag that's kind of has its own ending. So you can choose your style of coding. I haven't tried validating whether the validator likes one or the other. I copy that. If I actually want a new line, typically, just for visual, you can put them on separate lines, but you don't have to. You could put the VRs right here, and that'll count as 3 carriage returns. So I hit refresh after saving it. I have to remember to save it, and then refresh. And now I see it appearing just like it appeared over here. So a lesson here is, if you don't force new lines, it skips all the white space, including lines here, because it's treating them as just a space between the word line and the word and. So watch what I can do here. I can have multiple lines between there and save that. It'll look just like it did at the first. This is a second line. All those lines just become one space. Now suppose I actually did want a space, but not multiple lines. Remember that special entity? Ampersand NBSP, non-breaking space. And if I want lots of them, I can copy and paste lots of non-breaking spaces in there. And now save and refresh. And now I do have spaces between the is and a. Without the non-breaking space, I will only get one space. Even if I have multiple spaces, save that, it still compresses that down to a single space.
So,
NBSP for non-breaking space. NBSP. And I believe that's over here in our entities list. There it is, the non-breaking space. That's a common thing. Our HTML starts to look ugly when we start using that, when we have ampersand NBSPs in there. But that's what you need if you actually want more spaces between you and that second line. So as we start using fancier things, you might see that if you actually want an ampersand, you can, like I did in that paragraph, it actually gave me an ampersand. To be safe, usually you'll use the entity name to make sure it's giving you exactly what you want. Because different browsers may behave differently, may ignore the ampersand without something if you didn't do a ampersand AMP. Another browser might actually say, oh, I'll show it because I think I know what you want, like Chrome is currently doing. But the official rules say you don't get an ampersand unless you use the entity. Is that making sense to you? Still pretty basic stuff. And we'll work on this a little bit more next week and turn in, actually, yeah, we'll work on it next week. We'll do some of the lists and links and tables. Tables are the most exciting. These are just basic stuff. How about for your homework, go work through the HTML exercise tutorial on W3 Schools, and let's talk about, did you find it useful? Did you find it way too simplistic? I generally find them pretty easy to get through, pretty light, and then on your own, see if you can break things. And keep testing that validator every time you do something, because your homework will not get credit without it validating properly. All right, have a wonderful day.
Mr. Manning, you might appreciate what I'm going to deem the turtle accelerator.
What? What do you?
So you're just increasing his speed?
And his turn rate.
So, I'm gonna take a look.
Up to a certain maximum value, because otherwise he just shoots off the screen.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. But it's cool, the different numbers you put in for his maximum value create completely different shapes.
When I was looking, it looked like there was a maximum like about 30.
It's hit its stats point. Here, I can show you the beginning, because the beginning is the
What
most
is his
interesting
maximum
part.
speed?
Well, right now his maximum speed is 200 pixels.
And then it doesn't increase anymore no matter what number you give it.
Oh, looks like an arrow or something.
I mean, like, because that's what I put in.
Yeah.
So the maximum speed for the turtle, in the turtle module is 0, which means it adapts to whatever you put it in.
As fast as possible?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
But if you're looking for a default speed, it would be 10, but you can use 0 to make it go even faster.
It's kind of interesting to actually, it's kind of more entertaining to actually see it draw than have to just suddenly appear. It's kind of fun to watch the development of your graphs.
Yep.
That's why I've always loved graphics, because you see immediately results of your little code change.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Manning.
You are welcome.
Since there are so many different browsers, does the standard work in all of them, or do you not know?
You have to find out. They should, but there's no guarantee. And that's why whenever you do web development, you have a tester there, or you have some process that has a different browser refreshing your page to just make sure before you release it, did it pass on every browser on your list?
I decided to switch from the default Microsoft Edge browser.
Yeah.
Finally, I tried Firefox, but for some reason it wouldn't work.
Not
So
so.
I-
What do you mean? What didn't work? Certain pages were bad, or
I think it kept